Hello, everybody. Now it's lunchtime. Let me introduce myself first. My name is Gesa. I'm one of the GPs and founders of the Auxxo Female Catalyst Fund. We built this fund because back in the day, we saw that there were just not a lot of female founders out there, and our vision was always to see that the European economy, at least the decision makers in the European economy, be a mirror of society, and we're far away from that. So we thought we wanted to make our own contribution for this and basically bridge female founders and the very male-dominated VC industry. So we co-invest specifically in teams with at least one female founder and are really collaborative in that. And back in the day, when we still angel invested, we invested in Localyze. So Hanna, maybe you can say some words about yourself first.
Yeah. I'm Hanna, one of 3 female founders. We're a rare breed, I would say, especially in B2B software. So we have my one co-founder on the technical side, or CTO, and then the other one on the commercial side. Founded Localyze in 2018, and what we do is we help companies move their employees across borders. So everything like from the immigration part to relocation, helping them with housing, etc. And so a typical customer would be a larger company, ideally with multiple locations across Europe, across the world. And then we help them relocate new talent into one of the locations, bring talent abroad for assignments, do business trips, all of the beautiful stuff. And I moved abroad a lot, so I know the pain point. Have a big passion for decreasing borders. And very happy to be here today.
In preparation, I looked at our notes from back in the day, why we invested into Localyze, and I found some notes which I would like to share here. Number one being, it was a very diverse team, 3 women, but they're very diverse. One was super technical, one was really outside in the sales thing, and one was very organizational driven. And it was an area that didn't exist yet, at least not in Europe, and we didn't have any really good models in the US that showed that this was a proven model. So it was actually pretty risky, but we saw how driven these founders were, and they had great traction back in the day. So when we invested, this was the first round after the Y Combinator. And we were the only German, and I think also European, may that be, I'm not sure, but the only German ones at least investing in this round. And the traction was every single test case that they showed to their customers had a 100% conversion. That's number one. The second thing being 0% churn at the time that we invested, and the third thing being a 75% margin. So that plus the whole what this company was all about really made us invest into that. So maybe you can tell us a little bit of why that's back in the day, but why do investors now invest in Localyze, and what's the story behind that?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Like also, if I compare fundraising, like we didn't do. Back in the days, it feels like a long time ago, we didn't do like a pre-seed round. We did like seed, Series A, Series B. And also looking at like what were the topics in each round, but also like how much easier it got. Because I think at an earlier round, it's a lot about the founders and us being, not coming from certain universities, not having worked at certain companies before, plus potentially also being female founders definitely didn't make it easier. And so a lot of people, despite the good traction that we had, didn't want to take the risk, didn't want to believe in us. And then at the Series A, our traction was the thing that mattered. And I think like that later stage rounds, like it becomes more rational. It's only about the numbers. And there you can have like less bias. Of course, there is still like a little bit about maybe like the negotiation, etc., but it becomes less because also there is a clear valuation strategies, etc. And so that for us was also really good to see. We did our Series A in 9 days and our Series B in 8 days. Also because I did not love fundraising and tried to do it as structured as possible, but that definitely shows that. I think like taking that out definitely made it easier.
There's probably several founders here, so they would like to know, how did you do that in 8 days and 9 days? Like, what's the secret behind that?
Yeah, extreme structure, and then just really trying to push everything into into the structure that you want. So like starting with, of course, like building up all the materials, and then like saying, okay, this is the day that we kick off doing the pitch with 1, 2, 3 investors first, and then basically just saying, okay, like now that's the deadline. Now we start also telling all the investors, because like when you start the conversation, some say, oh yeah, let's meet in 2 weeks. And then if you say like, hey, look, we can do that, but maybe fundraise is over. It's a bit of a tricky thing potentially, because of course, like if you don't have any meetings, like word will also go around. But like for us, I think like doing that made it easier, because then of course like word also gets out that the fundraise is happening, and so like then people hear that they are having conversations. That makes it easier again, like to really get everyone onto that schedule. And so for us, we did all the first calls within 5 days. And then you start like doing the follow-up calls. And then for us, it was really like, there was always like one fund that said, hey, we really want to do that. We want to be quick. For the second larger fundraiser, for the Series B, it was interesting because that was in June, July last year, where the economy already had been a bit bumpy. And so also for us, like doing the selection of who is still investing, who is still also able to like make quick decisions, and so I think like there was like a bigger kind of like selection of funds that we didn't speak to or like didn't prioritize, but then for us like really sticking to our schedule, like making sure that we push it through, have all the material ready, really helped.
So for me, the climate change of not having to jump really fast into investments, I like that personally, because I felt really insecure giving founders a yes after just knowing them for several days. And I guess the climate now has changed with everyone. So if you were fundraising now and you don't have to, how many months? You have a lot of months of runway right now, so you don't have to. But if you were fundraising again, and I guess the 8 days is not a realistic thing that would happen today, what would you recommend? How would you adapt to the current market?
I would probably still do it the same way. And I think like of course, like then it can take longer. What I think helps is like if you really have your material ready, because like ultimately I get that making a quick decision sometimes is tough, but also like if you just really, if the material is like really ready and like you have clarity on everything, it's like well prepared, there's like no question marks, I think then it's still possible to do it quickly. I think like sometimes why rounds are longer now often is because investors are more hesitant, and like no one wants to be like the stupid one who's doing a like something where later everyone says, oh, but like you overlooked something. And so I think like that is even worse now. And so I think like that is why things are also dragging out. Like you try and like dig deeper to find a reason to say no. But if a startup really I don't know, like has a proven model, has like all the numbers in place, and like really also like customers that you can talk to, I think then maybe not 8 days, but I still think that quicker rounds should be possible. I think like the good startups will always be able to raise. And so I think like there it's really, you need to make sure that you really have the numbers. I think like that, otherwise in the current climate, things with not so good margins will suffer more, I would say. But yeah, I would probably still stick to the same structure though.
We have 1 minute left, maybe one last question. The other way around, there's also many investors here. How did you pick your investors that at the end were able to invest, and what's your focus concerning the picking of investment?
I think like their investors, it also depends on the round, but I think like one thing that I would not underestimate is that you really need to have a good relationship and like have the feeling that you can work with that person, because then if shit hits the fan, you want to have the right people on the cap table. And I think like they're also with Auxxo, for example, like right after you invested, COVID happened and borders were closed. And so we did have 6 really hard months. And then like really seeing the value of like investors like you who continue to believe in us and really said like, hey, you can do this. That is tremendously valuable. And so for us, also then at the Series A, we chose Blossom because we knew that Ophelia is very, very driven, is picking up the pace with us. And then now at the Series B with Max from General Catalyst, same like the experience of like also the companies that he worked with was extremely helpful. So, so far I have never regretted any of the decisions.
Thank you so much, Hanna. Thank you, everyone.